thing today, my brothers and sisters. Well, I encourage you to keep your eyes on Jesus. There's going to be so many distractions in your life. There's going to be so many obstacles. You know, Dr. Tony Evans tells the story about Carrie Shug, who was she was a Olympic gymnastic in 1996, and she had took a jump and she had damaged her leg pretty bad. But the hope for the United States gold rested on her. She had one more to go, and she did it. But her coach kept telling her, Carrie, you can do it. You can do it. Keep your eyes on me. All she had to do was make a successful vault, and the United States would win the gold. But there was a problem. Her leg was damaged. But her coach kept encouraging her, Carrie, you can do it. You have one more jump. You can do it. Keep your eyes on me. That one vault that she had left was the line between gold and going home as a loser. And as she made that run to do that vault, she concentrated on her coach, kept her eyes on him, and she successfully did the vault, and she got the proper score. My brothers and sisters, keep your eyes on Jesus. No matter what's going on, no matter what it looks like, no matter what it seems like. You see, we walk by faith, not by sight, and definitely not by feelings. Sometimes it's going to hurt, but if you keep your eyes on Jesus, he can give you the courage to do everything that you need to do, even if it hurts. He is your strength. So I encourage you, my young brothers and sisters, to keep your eyes on Jesus. Let these words be encouraging to you so that you might know, no matter what the problem is, if you keep your eyes on Jesus, you can make it, my brothers and sisters. And remember, there's a way out of your mess, and it's JESUS.
Where can you buy a brand new Nissan with a lifetime warranty? Kingston Pike. Hey, folks, Jordan with Ted Russell Nissan. You heard it right. Every new Ted Russell Nissan comes with a lifetime warranty, and that's a long, long time. Ted Russell Nissan on Kingston Pike.
Good morning and welcome to AM 1380 WYSH and Ask Your Neighbor. Ask Your Neighbor can also be heard and seen on our website, WYSHradio.com. And if you are in Anderson, Rome, or Morgan County and have Comcast cable, you can watch Ask Your Neighbor on BBB TV Channel 12. Ask Your Neighbor is the program where you call in and do just that. Ask Your Neighbor. Do you have a comment? Do you have a problem? Or do you have a question? Then call in and ask your neighbor. 865-457-1380 or toll free at 877-711-4005. And for those of you that might be listening or watching on the internet, you can email from our website, WYSHradio.com. Just click on the Contact Us button and email your questions. Now sit back and listen as listeners throughout East Tennessee and the entire world answer your questions on Ask Your Neighbor on BBB TV 12 and AM 1380 WYSH.
All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome into the first Tuesday of the month, the first day of the month of July. It's our Ask the Doctor segment on Ask Your Neighbor.
It's our grand opening.
Dr. David Ayers is in here with us this morning. Dr. Ayers, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
How are you?
Doing fine.
Good. What do we have stirred up in the medical community today?
I don't know. Who knows? Please call.
Yes, I want to remind everybody, you can call anytime during the show. 865-457-1380. We'll get you right on with any questions that you have, Dr. Ayers. Just call anytime, and we'll put you right on the radio.
Yeah. News tends to be bad, so it's hardly much happy news. But let's look at some things here. And if you saw that RFK Jr. fired the whole CDC Vaccine Advisory Committee. I forget how many people are on that committee. It's an interesting committee, at least when the new vaccine comes up, these people give their input about what they think it should be taken or not taken, what ages should get it or not get it, and have all this. But the CDC's under no obligation to listen to what they say. So sometimes they'll vote to put one through or not put one through, and the CDC will sort of countermand that and do their own thing. But there's a new committee now, and I guess it's a little better than the old committee, but there's a problem out there right now with vaccines. And if you talk to your pediatrician, the pediatricians are almost militant vaccines. It's almost like a religion to these people. I mean, they're really torn up about this whole thing, about the whole proposition that they might not have to have all these shots. So that's in the news, and I'm not sure what's going to happen with it. You hear this used a lot. I think RFK uses this statement a lot, that there are no pre-vaccine or pre-licensing safety studies on any of these vaccines. I guess COVID had some. It's the only one. So none of these other vaccines had any pre-licensing safety studies. They were put out there without that. And just so you can understand the reasoning, well, that happened. Not that you have to agree with this reasoning, but this is the reasoning. These were termed under biologics. We talked about this last month a little bit. So vaccines are filed under biologics. They're not filed as drugs. Drugs require certain studies before they can be approved for use in humans. Or you'd think so, at least according to the FDA. So to get around that, they named these vaccines biologics. And the thinking was that America was going to be attacked by some germ from some other country, and it was going to be a big problem for us. And so we needed all these vaccines to protect us from any biologic that might be sent our way. And that couldn't be all bogged down with safety studies. No, can't do that. Let's just give it to people without the benefit of these things are safe. And that's really why they don't have any pre-licensing safety studies. It was to prevent us from being damaged by an attack. So it wasn't really to keep your kid from getting whooping cough so bad. It was to prevent the nation from being taken down with an outbreak of whooping cough by some other foreign entity. So we talked last time about going to the hospital. You need to scratch through the biologics unless you want them to give you a vaccine. Because when they use the word biologic, most people don't understand that means a vaccine. But when you sign to go in the hospital for because of an emergency or because you're getting some elective or semi-elective procedure done, you agree that they can give you any biologics they deem necessary. It's in the paperwork, which nobody reads. And you just need to know what that is a vaccine they're talking about. The good news, I guess, coming out of medicine is that there appears to be benefit for skin cancers with ivermectin cream. So ivermectin, like the horse paste you get at the feed store, you can take that and rub it on a basal cell or a squamous cell. And they say even malignant melanoma, but I have cautions about that. We'll talk about that. But most of the skin cancers are squamous cell or basal cell. Basal cell is by far away probably the number one that people get. So if you got that little thing and your doctor says he thinks it's a skin cancer, you could try rubbing ivermectin cream on there 2 or 3 times a day. Remember, it is an effective anti-cancer drug. And these things are topical. These skin cancers are topical. So you can use the topical form of the drug to try to treat it. And I'd give it 2 or 3 weeks and then see. Basal cells and squamous cells aren't apt to metastasize. I had one patient in all my 30 years of practicing that had a squamous cell skin cancer metastasize and causes death. Mostly they stay in that one spot. Malignant melanoma, it can cut loose and end up in all kinds of places. So I'd be a little hesitant about that. I might consider getting it cut out and then using it at the site. They maybe keep it from coming back. But malignant melanoma, there are some other novel treatments for melanoma that involve your immune system. I've heard very good reports about it, but still they're messing with your immune system. So you got to weigh that in a balance. But malignant melanoma seems to be more related to sunburn than sun tanning. If you get tanned regularly, you probably do increase your chance of getting squamous cell or basal cell skin cancer. But remember, those typically don't kill people. They just get them cut off, or might be able to put this ivermectin on them. The malignant melanoma is the pigmented kind, or worse, the non-pigmented melanomas, because they don't look like melanomas. They don't seem to be related to tanning or laying out in the sun. And I do think you need to get more sun. Most of us need at least 20 minutes a day on as much skin as you can expose without getting arrested. Okay? That will just improve your vitamin D situation a lot. And vitamin D is critical to your immune system. It's not just that your bones will be strong. It's that your immune system will work. It's critical to the immune system that your vitamin D be up there. And most of us stay inside way too much. We get way too little sunshine. And therefore, vitamin Ds tend to be low.
Remember, guys, you can call anytime you want at 865-457-1380. If you have a question for Dr. Ayers, go ahead and call. We'll put you right on the radio, right here on the air.
Other things being bandied around in the world of news is the ethics of organ donation. That's a tricky thing. If you remember last month, we talked about this whole concept of brain dead came out of the need for organs to donate. We never really had a brain dead thing. Everybody knew what dead was, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now we have a brain dead thing, meaning your body's functioning okay, just your brain is dead. So that started with organ donation. And it's an iffy thing. So I guess people are having questions now. If I have an organ donation thing on my driver's license and I come in and I'm hurt pretty bad, will they not try real hard? Because the hospital makes a lot of money when you donate your organs. There's a lot of money being made by somebody when you donate your organs.
We got a question here.
Sure.
Good morning. Do you have a question or comment for Dr. Ayers this morning?
Good morning. I have a question for Dr. Ayers.
All right. Go right ahead.
Thank you. I have one of those oxygen level things that you put on your finger.
Right.
And I was wondering, I'll get away from my radio.
There you go.
I was wondering what I know it's supposed to be, I think it's supposed to be 90 or above, but when it gets below 90, when should you go see a doctor or go see somebody, and what can you do? And I'll hang up and listen.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So he's talking about an oxygen saturation meter, which is one of the little things they stick on your finger if you go to the emergency room or you're in the hospital, or you can buy them for like $30, $40, I think, at most pharmacies. You just slip it over your finger and it gives you a number and it tells you what the saturation of your blood is as far as oxygen goes. So one of the troubles with it is that 90 on a test in school sounds like a good number, but 90 on this is probably not as good. When they first came out, I'd get calls from the emergency room on a child that came in with an oxygen saturation of 90, and the ER thought that was good. Well, that's not good. So what we're talking about is percent of saturation. How much of the hemoglobin you have in your blood is saturated with oxygen? So at 90%, that means the oxygen in your blood is about 60. So if they did an arterial blood gas on you, it would read about 60. And whereas 100 on that would be good. So 90 is not even that good. It should be like 95, 96, 97, 98, 99 if you have normal lungs, normal heart. So if you're running down at 90, there's a problem there already. Definitely below 90, you need to be checked out. But if you're running 90 on an average day, that doesn't mean you're going to qualify for oxygen. Usually they want you, Medicare wants you at 88, I believe, or less to qualify for oxygen. But it is something's wrong if you're down at 90 all the time. Even if you're 92 all the time, something's wrong. It ought not to be that low. It should be, like, say, above 95 at least. 97, most of you out there would run 98, 99 on an oxygen saturation meter. So that's one of the problems I see with it, because we tend to think 90's good and 90's not so good. So definitely at 90 or below, you have problems somewhere, and it needs to be checked out. So it's a good little thing to have in your armamentarium at home. I do recommend you go buy one of them. It's a good thing to tell you how sick you are. If you got a bad cold and coughing and you're wondering if you have pneumonia, that's a good piece of evidence to have in your armamentarium about what your oxygen saturation is. But just remember, normal people runs 97 or 98 typically. If you're down to 90, that's bad. If you're less than 90, that's really scary. My father-in-law, when he had COVID, we weren't going to send him to the hospital because everybody went to the hospital seemed to die. Mm-hmm. So he got down to 70 on his saturation. I never seen anybody live with saturation 70 or better, particularly treated at home. But he pulled out of it and still with us today. So it can get down pretty low. We did buy him an oxygen machine just off Craigslist or somewhere, and it got up to 92, I think, with that. You can't stay down at 70. That's obviously very, very low. But a good thing to have at home. It's like a blood pressure cuff. What should you have at home? Right? You should have a blood pressure cuff, and one that you just push a button, it blows itself up, it lets itself down, and gives you a number. The more you have to do, I find more inaccurate results people get. Machines are pretty accurate these days. Omron, I'm not pushing any brand particular, but Omron is a reliable brand. I'm sure there are others. It's OMRON. And like I say, you just put it on your arm, push a button. You should sit down about 2 minutes before you take your blood pressure, because your blood pressure does go up and down quite a bit, depending on what you're doing. And that's a good thing to have at home. Do you need a stethoscope at home? I don't know. If you can take your pulse, you probably don't need that. If you find this is a common problem these days, is atrial fibrillation, and people sometimes go in and out of it. And going in and out of it is actually worse than just being in it. So in and out of it means you have a normal rhythm, thump, 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 and then you go into thump, 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 like that. What happens in atrial fibrillation is that the top part of the heart, if you think there's 4 chambers in your heart, the 2 upper chambers, their job is to top off the 2 lower chambers before they squeeze. The 2 lower chambers are the ones that squeeze and blood everywhere. So the 2 upper chambers fill the 2 lower chambers. But sometimes they get out of sync. And when they get out of sync, it causes the lower part of the heart to beat irregularly. And you get this skipping beats, and you can feel it in your chest. Something's funny. Sometimes it feels like popcorn in there. It's just erratic. The heart doesn't pump blood all that well in that situation. You lose about 30% of your cardiac output when you drop into atrial fibrillation. So you may not notice if you're sitting around doing a desk job. If you went to go jogging, you'd probably notice the difference. Get a little more shorter breath quickly. But when the upper 2 chambers don't squeeze in atrial fibrillation, the blood can pool up there. And when blood pools, just like you had in the bowl on the table, it would clot. And then if it goes back out of atrial fibrillation and starts squeezing again, they can shoot those clots to all kinds of places. So if you've had a stroke sometimes, then part of the workup they may do is to put you on a Holter monitor or some kind of heart monitor to see if you're jumping in and out of atrial fibrillation. So your stethoscope might be handy there if you're not good at checking your pulse. Easiest place to check your pulse is not your neck, really. It's right there below you, the base of your thumb on your inside of your wrist. You can feel your heart beating there. And it should be regular. It's like a clock. Average heart rate's 72, but a lot of people run slower than that. Normal is considered 60 to 100, but if you're up toward 100, there's probably some kind of problem going on. That's your resting pulse. Some people in their sleep will drop down to his 30s, and they'll still be normal if they're in shape and a runner. Other way I guess you can check your pulse is a wearable. A lot of wearables out there. I think RF Kennedy hoped by 2030 that everybody in the United States would have a wearable. I'm not so sure about that. Wearables are cool as far as giving you information about what your pulse and stuff is. The downside of it is they have a constant output of radio frequency radiation. I mean, it never goes off. And they can also handle Bluetooth and some other kinds of radiation. But I think the radio frequency radiation is constant with those things. And remember, there's no amount of radiation that's safe. It all has its problems. And it's bad enough you have a phone in your pocket, much less you strap something on your body. And then what are they going to do with this data? There's a whole trouble with, privacy. Because the reason he wants you to have a wearable so they can get all this data from all over the United States and see what people are doing, and they think that'll give them some sort of direction. I mean, typically the government's response is if we had more data, we could do a better job, and that's sort of what he's trying to do, get more data. But I don't think a wearable is the way to do that. A lot of people have them, and they're fine. If you have a heart problem, I guess it might be considered worthwhile to be able to check your pulse quickly. I guess if you fall down, it asks if you need help, or it's a lot of cool tricks they can do with technology these days. But it all does come at the cost of radiation, which is fraught with its own problems. I saw at the end of the conference they had the other day at the CDC, the vaccine committee came out and said mRNA vaccines are safe. That's where they ended the conference. That is interesting, because definitely the COVID wasn't safe. So what about that? I think medicine has set its future, and they've tied it to mRNA vaccines, because they think they can make these mRNA vaccines, and that's really modified RNA, not messenger RNA, these modified RNA vaccines to cure almost any problem. They think they're going to be able to cure Alzheimer's and any kind of cancer you get. They'll be able to whip up some kind of personalized vaccine for you, maybe based on your DNA, and fix anything. That's the way they see the future of medicine going. We're going into genetic manipulation. It's not really genetic therapy. I think therapy implies that it's good. Genetic manipulation is kind of the way the future of medicine, at least that's the way medicine's headed. And if you can understand that, then you can understand the whole COVID thing, why they had to have the COVID thing. They had to get that mRNA vaccine platform approved. And that's really what it's all about. If you want to know the whole story of COVID, it was to get the mRNA vaccine platform approved, because now the FDA views it as safe. So if you come up with something new for mRNA, you're halfway through the FDA already, because they've already said it's safe.
We got another question here.
Okay.
Good morning, WYSH. Welcome to Ask Your Neighbor. Do you have a question for Dr. Ayers today?
Yeah, I have a comment.
All right.
I asked at Walgreens and CVS if they sold ivermectin over the counter, and they said they chose not to.
Okay.
Yeah. It's in Tennessee.
Just making a comment. I know Tennessee passed a law that they could, but they said they did.
Okay. Some of them, I mean, you just have to search for a pharmacy around here that does. Some do, don't they, Doc?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you go to the local pharmacies would be your better choice. All these chains, they're going to just steer clear of it, because they're friends with the FDA.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
One more thing, if you got a minute.
Sure.
Yeah, I called you last week and was asking you questions about the COVID, and come find out, we were wondering that it was that I was dehydrated.
Oh, really?
And so I'm doing better now.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad to hear that.
You know, I told you I went to the ER and had the brain fog and sick of my stomach and lightheaded and tired. But I was wondering about if it might be the COVID, but it did turn out to be the fluid, the dehydrated.
Well, good. I'm glad you're feeling better. I'm glad they got it identified and fixed up for you.
Yeah, just let people know to make sure they get enough fluids, because I thought I was getting enough water, but apparently I wasn't, and I wasn't out in the heat, so.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate the call.
Okay.
Have a good
Thank
day.
you, Doc.
All righty.
Bye-bye. Yeah, he called the other day and was talking about he was sick, and he went to the doctor and said they tested him for COVID, and he was wondering if the test could have come back negative because he felt like, he had all the symptoms of COVID, but ended up being that he was just dehydrated.
Yeah, I talked to my brother the other day. He's still practicing. He says he's tested tons of people for COVID up there in West Virginia. He's really not had anybody positive in months. So it seems to be gone, or pretty much gone. Remember, it's going to be a seasonal thing.
Yeah.
I guess the question is, how much water do you need to drink? Not as much as they say. You should really just drink based on thirst, unless maybe if you're taking some medicine that depletes you of fluid, then you may want to drink a little bit more. But should just drink according to thirst. That for most people, that's really all you need. Sometimes older people can, because there's things called insensible losses. So if I'm calculating how much fluid somebody needs in the intensive care unit, I have to calculate how much their body needs to do all of its functions. And then there's these insensible losses, which is when you breathe out. If you breathe out onto your mirror at home, you notice it fogs up transiently. That's because when you breathe out, you lose water. You have to consider all that losses. There's measured losses, like I can measure somebody's urine output and I can replace that. But if I don't calculate for these insensible losses, the patient will start to dehydrate there in the hospital in spite of having an IV in his arm. So sometimes as we get older, we lose some of the mechanisms in our body that tell us that we need to take a drink of liquid, and that we need to eat even. I mean, sometimes people will just waste away. So sometimes you have to force yourself to do something on schedule. You eat 2 or 3 times a day. You need to drink regularly. But 8 to 10 glasses of water a day, for most people, they get sick.
Mm-hmm.
Now, unless you're out mowing yards or doing roofing, you probably need more than that. Just have to, like say, listen to your body. Do you need to add salt to it? Not typically. We typically get enough sodium in our diet. We don't have to. But now, if you were a roofer in this heat, then you may want to consider that, or at least eating something that's salty to replace those losses. So we did that. Yeah. So go back to RFK.
All right.
He's trying to do this stop insurance pre-authorization studies. Now, doctors would just love that because you don't know how much time it takes to get something pre-authorized. It is horrible in these doctors' offices. You have to, usually, here's what it comes down to, and this is just sad. It almost always comes down to the doctor calling. You can have your staff call and say, this is what the patient has, this is why he needs this drug, they need to get this approved, and they say, no, we're not going to approve this drug. You can't have it. So then you have to call. And when you call, they approve it. It's just a way to delay you getting the medicine that the doctor thinks you need, or you getting a procedure or a test that the doctor thinks you need. And it kills a lot of time. There are a lot of delays. Not as many delays as there are when you have a national health care system. That's even worse. So if you go to Canada, like say they wait maybe a couple of years for an MRI sometimes. It's just, but down here, us Americans, we want things done yesterday. So the doctor says you need an MRI, you think you can go tomorrow and get it. Well, maybe. Some calling's going to have to be done. And that calling takes time. And funny, in the world of medicine, unlike your attorney, if your attorney spent an hour on the phone getting something approved, he would bill you about $300 to $500.
Yeah.
Your doctor has there's no money for that. He has to pay somebody to do that. And I can't tell you. Sometimes you could spend your entire day on the phone getting medicines and tests and surgeries approved for your patients and never even see a patient. That's how much time it takes. So if you can make that better, I think that would be good. I think the insurance companies will fight that tooth and nail. Be surprised if it goes down that easy. this other thing that RFK said, he said a CDC buried a study from 1999 that showed that by giving children hepatitis B vaccines, that's when they get like on the first day of life in the hospital, it caused an 1,135% increase in risk of autism. And they just buried that. That was an internal study they did based on their own data, and they decided not to tell anybody about that. So whether it turns out vaccines are the cause, I guess this September they're supposed to come out with the cause for autism. I think it's going to be several things. One of them, I'm sure, will be vaccinations. Let's go back to SIDS. What about SIDS a little bit last month? SIDS stands for SIDS, Sudden Infant Death Syndrome. I had maybe 2 cases in 30 years. Obviously, you have to see children and babies, so pediatricians and family practice doctors will have more of those cases. And, you know, then sometime in the 90s, they came out with the Back to Sleep program, if you remember that. Or some studies supposedly done in Sheffield, England, where they flipped babies over in the back and they saw a 50% decrease in crib death or sudden infant death syndrome, SIDS. And so that's what we did. I remember talking to every patient come in with a new baby. I said, just keep your baby on its back. And that cuts down on crib death. Don't get anything soft in there. Just put him on a pretty firm little mattress and a blanket, and that'll be plenty. And so then what I started to see all these kids with flat heads in the back because the parents were terrified. They wouldn't ever let their baby be on its belly. They kept them on their back, and they had these little Frankenstein-like heads, but they never got over on their belly. You have to put your baby on its belly sometimes, people, isn't it? It can't develop any arm strength. It can't get over on its belly and push up. So, but that was the thing. That was the thing. Now we get rid of crib death, or at least cut about 50%. And so it did drop by about 50% in the next few years after they started that program. But what didn't drop was infant death. So
it just changed.
It just changed. They started calling, and actually took away the code. You know, doctors have to put everything in code. You come in for blood pressure, it's got a code. It's got a number. Your visit level, it's got a number. Everything's a number in medicine. That's just for billing and tracking data. So they took away the code for vaccine-related death in infants. They took that code away, so you couldn't even code that anymore. So guess what? It dropped. Nobody could code for it. But the number of deaths didn't drop. And I heard a doctor, he says, you have to think it's ridiculous that people have been around as long as we've been around, millennia on this earth, and nobody figured out this turn your baby over on its back, cut down on crib death. I think somebody would have figured it out by now. It doesn't do anything. And yet, the other day, some parent got charged with murder, I think. Not murder. Manslaughter. Anyway, the district attorney charged the parents with killing their child because it died of crib death, and they admitted that they didn't put the baby down on its back. And so they charged them like a crime. Well, listen, you lose your baby, that's a horrible enough. Then to be charged as a crime, like it's your fault, it's not true. It's just not true. My gut feeling is that putting your baby on its back really hasn't saved any lives. Because what parents would say then, what if they spit up? They choked to death? And, you know, there are a few choking to death per year in the United States, but it's really rare. God made ways for babies to clear the airway, but so put your baby down however you want to put it down. I just think that all this is just ridiculous. It's just a bit ridiculous. Some babies like better on their back, and that's fine. Some babies like better on their belly. FDA. Listen, this is the story of the FDA. But first off, now this was told by a Dr. Artis. I think he's a chiropractor. according to him, he said that the way a lot of drugs get approved by the FDA is that the pharmaceutical company pays them something like $10 million. And by doing that, the FDA sort of fast tracks your drug and just relies on the pharmaceutical studies to approve the drug. So they don't look at any outside studies. Whatever studies the pharmaceutical company did on it, they're accepting that on face value, and they're approving the drug that we can get it out there faster. But 75% of the money, at least of the drug approval money that the FDA runs off of, comes from the pharmaceutical companies. That gets to be a problem. Same with the FDIC is in the banks. They make their money, the banks, from the banks. So it's hard to get them to say anything bad about a bank. It's hard to get the FDA to say anything bad about a drug company. Because I think this FDA approval thing carries so much weight with people. If they hear a drug's been FDA approved, they
trust it.
They do. And It's not. You shouldn't trust it. Do not trust it. Or the CDC or the NIH for that matter. Maybe the NIH is going to turn around and do better now. But listen to this drug. This drug is called, it's a shot, and it's for meningococcal meningitis. So it's called Menquadfi, Menquadfi. It got approved to use down at 6 weeks of age, really in spite of the fact that it had a serious adverse event rate of 5.3%. So these are serious side effects, 1 out of 20. So for every 20 shots you gave, one child was going to get pretty sick. Okay. But the reason they approved it down to 6 weeks of age was because there's another one of them called Menveo, M-E-V-E-O. It had a 3.6% serious adverse effect. And it was approved down to 6 months of age, or 6 weeks of age.
Wow. Okay.
So it says, well, 5.3 is not that much more than 3.6. If we let that one guy in, we got to let this guy in. So they let him in based on just because the numbers weren't that much worse than the last guy. Well, if you look at Menveo, they got approved because Menactra was approved down to 6 weeks of age, and they had a level, and Menveo wasn't that worse than Menactra's. So Menactra came in with some level of serious adverse effects, and then Menveo came out, and that wasn't too much worse, so they approved it just because it wasn't too much worse. Well, then Menquadfi came out, and it wasn't too much worse than Menveo, and now they got approved. So I don't know, at some point it's going to be like 50%, and they're going to say, well, it's not that much worse than the last one we approved. I don't think 1 out of 20 serious adverse events for a disease that's extraordinarily uncommon. Now, don't get me wrong, meningococcal meningitis is deadly. It's the kind of thing you can catch at noon and be dead by supper. It's fast-moving and bad. But really, we see it mostly in teenage years. We see it mostly when people come together from all over. So when you go to high school, when you go to the military, when you go to college, that's where we see most of the meningitis. So getting a shot for that may be a consideration in your early teen years. I don't see the rush to give it at 6 weeks of age. Michael Crichton, did he write Jurassic Park? Or
I think he did, yeah.
So he said something. He said, consensus is not science. It's a way to avoid debate on a topic by saying that the matter is already settled. If it's consensus, it's not science. And yet we have these consensus things, consensus statements on treating a lot of things, where this is what doctors think is the best idea to do at this point in time. But we don't have any science to back it up. This is what we feel. We feel it in our hearts. So beware of consensus. Well, they use it on the global warming. 96% of doctors or scientists consensus study that global warming is real. So the NIH, it's National Institutes of Health. It's the single most powerful medical research agency in the United States. And you think that, and they fund a lot of research. They have a big budget, and they can fund a lot of things to get checked out. But it's really been pushing toward pharma expansion. It never hardly looks at any kind of herbal intervention. It hardly ever looks at any dietary intervention. It hardly looks at any kind of natural intervention, holistic kind of intervention. They only look at sort of pharmaceutical and vaccine interventions. And so that's what drives medicine in the direction that it's going. Hopefully this new guy, I can't remember his name, he's the head of it. Maybe it'll be better. But Fauci, he was head of the National Institutes for Allergy and Infectious Disease, NIAID, and that's part of the National Institutes of Health. And for about 40 years, he was head of that. And he just puts it toward vaccines. All the research he puts toward vaccines. So that shoves all of, that's why I'm 65. I got like a DPT and MMR, and I think it was it. That's all the shots you really got when I was a kid. Injectable polio. So, diphtheria, pertussis, which is whooping cough, tetanus, and then you got measles, mumps, rubella, and injectable polio. But now, like I say, if you get all the shots you recommend, you'll have about 92 shots by age 18.
Huge.
So, they just started immunizing for everything. That's the way all the research was going. That was because of Fauci. That's the way he was pushing it. He was also the king of gain of function, even though you've seen us bantering back and forth between him and
Rand Paul.
Rand Paul, yeah. Fauci's just lying there. It's what he's known for. He's the king of gain of function. And I don't know, I think they came out, the World Health Organization came out the other day and they said it looked like it came probably from the wet market bat or something, and that, but they're never going to know for sure. Well, that's obviously not true. That virus was manipulated, and you can tell it was manipulated by the way it was changed. They know how to do that. And sad to say, after looking at all that I've looked at, I'm pretty sure we made the thing here in the United States. Maybe at Duke University. And then we got sent over there, and then it got released over there. So there's plenty of blame to go around on the COVID thing. But it was a man-made virus. There's not even a question of a doubt about that. New study from the International Journal of Medical Sciences said that getting back to SIDS, when babies die of SIDS, they have problems in their medulla, which is the back of the brain, in the brainstem. And what they think is that these babies don't have enough of an enzyme to break down the toxins that are in the vaccines. And that's why you get crib death. If you look at crib death, this unexplained death in infants. And infants technically is from like 28 days of age to 1 year of age. So children between 1 month and 1 year of age. 3/4 of them happen within 7 days of a vaccine. So you got that? 3/4 of them happen within 7 days of a vaccine. And to say that the vaccines have nothing to do with it is just ridiculous. But now they think because they like an enzyme. Because what Japan did, Japan sort of eliminated crib death because they started giving no shots before 2 years of age. So now you got to be 2 years to get a shot over there. And that in itself got rid of crib death. Because by that time, the enzyme systems had matured enough, they could handle the toxins. Now, that's this crazy thing when you think about it. You're getting injected with a toxin. You're getting injected with a poison. Anytime you get a vaccine, you're getting injected with poison. Because here's what they found. If you want to give you a flu shot, say, here's the theory of vaccines. If I take some dead flu virus and inject Dr. Ayers with it, his body's immune system will say, that's not supposed to be here. And it will make a response to that. Mm-hmm. And it will file that away. And it's a little file box it's got. And then so sometime later, Dr. Ayers run into a live flu virus, and it gets in his body. Your immune system say, I think we've got that one on file, Bob. Let's go pull that out. It looks it up, sees what to do, and then it kills it, wipes it out fast when it gets exposed to it later. That's the theory. The trouble was, when they just injected that part of the dead virus, it didn't seem to work very well. So they added these things called adjuvants, ADJUVANT, adjuvant. And that's like aluminum. And they had to put that in there, and then they got a better response. The body made much more antibodies to the virus with the poison, because aluminum in your body is a poison. So anytime you get into vaccines, you're getting injected with a poison. And sometimes these babies don't seem to have enough liver enzymes to break that thing down, and then they end up with crib death. That's the current theory on crib death. UK Daily Mail said that some families had complete reversal of their autism symptoms by using a drug called leucovorin, Leucovorin, leucovorin. It's basically a vitamin. It's like folic acid. It is prescription. But in some kids, and this Dr. Fry, Frye, he's a pediatric neurologist, he feels that it could help a lot of children. A good percentage of the kids that have autism would do better, and sometimes, according to the UK Daily Mail, complete reversal of their symptoms. I think they had to stay on it, so it wasn't like a take it and you're cured thing. But you may talk to your pediatrician. Good luck with that, but better luck with a family practice doctor. A little bit more open-minded. It's very safe. We use it right now to keep people who take methotrexate, which is like a cancer drug. But sometimes we'll take for rheumatoid arthritis, methotrexate. They put you on the leucovorin to block some of the bad side effects of methotrexate. But it's basically folic acid. It's like vitamin B9. And if I had a child that was autistic, I would try that. It seems to be very safe, and it seems to be in a large percentage of the kids, not 100%, might cause improvement, if not complete reversal.
Remember, guys, you can call us anytime, 865-457-1380. We'll stop, take your call, and Doc will try and answer any questions that you have.
Yeah, because I'm running out of paper.
There you go.
Let's see here. This is a paper reviewed by Children's Self-Defense, or CHD. They're an interesting group. That's what RFK was head of before he took over this new job. The organization still exists. They don't always agree with him, which is interesting. But it published in Medical Research Archives, and that's the official journal of the European Medical Society. They said that the FDA and the CDC fell short of their obligation to surveil pharmaceutical harms, and particularly talking about COVID, that they didn't surveil the people to see that they were getting hurt from the therapy. And it's come out in print in a peer-reviewed journal. It's pretty damning to the CDC and the FDA.
Here's a question for you.
Got it.
My triglycerides are 351. How quickly can you get to a normal range if you cut sugars and fried foods for 30, 60, or 90 days?
Really fast. Triglycerides go up and down pretty fast. You know, like if you ate a fatty meal and then got it checked, it could be really high. In fact, I've seen, I had a lab tech in my office, and she'd bring me these tubes of blood that we spun down, and at the top there would be like a layer of fat, just like milk if it wasn't homogenized. Fat comes to the top of the blood sample, and it'd be just a layer of fat there at the top. Yeah, I think cutting the sweets out. I don't know that eating fat drives your triglycerides at that fat, but I think your sugars and stuff.
That's what does it.
So particularly if you're diabetic, you want to watch that. But we eat too many sweets here in the United States. Too much ultra-processed food. My brother wrote me the other day. He said he's got somebody that's allergic to soy. He says, how can you figure out what to eat? And I said, well, basically you have to read all the labels. And they're all going to say soy. And I said, it's probably the best thing ever happened to the guy to be allergic to soy. Because
you have to stop eating the bad stuff.
It's in everything. I mean, we tried to look for a loaf of bread the other day. And it's a long paragraph of stuff they added. Now, they add vitamins to bread. And why do they have to do that? There should be enough vitamins in our regular food. We don't need to add vitamins to food.
Got another call here when
Sure.
you're ready. Okay. Good morning. Welcome to Ask Your Neighbor on WYSH. You have a question?
Yeah, I'm just going to talk just a second about statins. I had called in last time on Ask Your Doctor about symptoms I had had 2 days in a row and heart attack symptoms. I kind of brushed it off because that's what I do. And then a couple of weeks later, I woke up during the middle of the night from stabbing pains, chest pains. And so the next morning, I already had an appointment with my primary care, and I knew what was going to happen. They're going to send me to the ER. So I already had my bag packed, and I went because she threatened to cancel her day and take me herself if I didn't. And interesting thing, my blood pressure, never had high blood pressure in my life, is like boom. And even that morning at my primary care, it was very normal. Of course, I expected it to go up because I was a little nervous in the ER. But eventually, by the time they got me to a room, it was 201 over 135. We sat there in the emergency room just watching it, hovering around 196, maybe 194. So they started this statin. You've got to take a statin. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. You're going to have a heart attack and die, or a stroke. I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. I said, my last time I had them checked, and that was within a couple of months, it was 155. That's exactly right. We've got your record here, and that's entirely too high. I said 55 points over 100. My good cholesterol's 55, which I was a little disappointed in. It's usually a little higher than that. And they were, that's too high. And I'm like, yeah, no, I don't think so. I said, I think it really kind of evens itself out. I said, I'm not concerned about the total cholesterol number being 240. And I refused to take their statin. So next morning, the floor doctor comes in, and he starts the whole thing again with me. And he was like Doogie Howser. And I thought, oh, my God, they've sent Doogie Howser in here. Great. And he started that. You have to take this, Miss Peel. You have to. And I'm like, yeah, no, I don't have to do anything. And they had already given me a readout of my labs from the ER. I said, which labs would you trust more, the ones that you did here in the hospital or the ones that I had done, like at, say, Quest Diagnostics? I'm pretty sure it's where my primary care used. And they said, well, definitely the ones here in the hospital would probably be a little better. I said, okay, well, I got them right here. And my LDL was 117. HDL still showing 55. I said, my gosh, I brought them down in the last, less than a month, or Quest was way off. I said, but I'm comfortable where they were before. And he's like, he got very upset with me. There is no such thing as any cholesterol that is good. No cholesterol is good. None of it. And I looked at him and I said, well, doctor, that's very strange to me. I said, then can you tell me why God created me and he made me have a liver, which I think like 80% of the cholesterol is made, and he also wired my body to my brain, so my brain can signal my liver and tell it, ooh, she needs more cholesterol here, and my liver can either make it if there's not enough and sends it exactly where it needs to be. I said, how did all that come about? How's that work exactly? He got so upset with me and just turned around on his heels, and out that door he went. And I was considered a non-compliant patient. They did end up putting me on a losartan to try to bring my blood pressure down. 25 milligrams twice a day, which I'm not crazy about that because I don't want pharmaceuticals, period. And my blood pressure, it's come down. It's doing well. But this is what people are fighting against. I did not need a statin. I didn't need one when my total cholesterol was 240 and my LDL was 155, and I certainly don't need it now with an LDL of 117. When are the medical people going to catch up with what is really going on in this world? And I don't have Alzheimer's. I need cholesterol. My brain, it feeds it. I've learned that from Dr. Ayers. I've learned it from research I've done on my own. It's highly ridiculous. And then they try to tell me, well, it's because you're overweight. And I'm like, well, I'm 5'2". I do need to lose some weight. I'll agree. I weigh 133 pounds. Your BMI shows that you're overweight. And I'm like, I don't put a whole lot into BMI, but whatever. So I wear a heart monitor and all that. Haven't heard back from any of that stuff yet, but just people really need to be cautious. I questioned everything they put in this little cup for me to take. And one time I said, whoa, there's 3 pills in here, not 2. You were giving me a baby aspirin, and I agreed to take the blood pressure medicine to get it down. Because I had factor 5. I didn't want to throw a clot and have a stroke with blood pressure that high. And they were trying to sneak the statin in. Blew my mind. But anyway, I just, cautionary tale. Really know and question, even if it makes Doogie Howser mad and he stomps out of your room. And that's my little story.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So, cholesterol in the blood thing comes out of the Framingham Heart Study. Framingham is a town outside of Boston. And they basically tracked the whole town as much as they could, and they took everybody's cholesterol, and they checked it regularly, and then they followed them over time. And then they found that they felt there was association between cholesterol and having heart attacks. It's an interesting study because somebody had to think that was the reason before they would initiate that. But I think it's still ongoing. They're still following people up there. But I think it's just wrong. I think when all said and done, it's just wrong. I almost wonder whether they came up with a medication that lowered cholesterol and they had to find a justification to use it. Because that's the way some of this stuff happens. Pharmaceutical companies are doing the research and development, and then they come up with a drug that does X. So then somehow they have to make X a disease. Or having too much X a disease. Or not enough X a disease if a drug makes it higher. And so that's the way the research all goes, and a way to prove it. But I really don't think there's that kind of association between lipids. And I do think statins are greatly overprescribed in this country. And I think it'll be a price to pay for that. 2 drugs in my career they've thought about putting in the water supply. That's the way they talk about it. One was Prozac, and one was one of the statins. So we should just put this in the water supply. That would help the whole population out. Yeah, I think that's not good medicine. Now we know Prozac doesn't do what we said it does. We always called these selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or SSRIs, and now we find that they don't do that at all. And your doctor's still writing for them just like they did. And they do it because it seems to help depression, but we don't know why. That's basically the whole SSRI story at this point. It seems to help depression. We don't know why it works, but you should take it. And then the statins in there get raise cholesterol lower. But if you look at it, heart disease has not dropped. If anything, it's probably gone up since we started treating everybody with a statin. So what's wrong there? Why is it that way? And she's right. Your brain is made of a lot of fat. there is some association in some studies with taking a statin and Alzheimer's. But, you know, I don't even know what studies you can trust these days. I don't believe hardly any of the studies coming out. So I don't think it's fair that I use a study to show that it can cause a problem. If I'm going to hold them that they can't use it to say that it does cause a problem. It's just because science has gone south, it's left us all in a quandary. Because in much as somebody estimated much as 60% of them, the numbers are fudged. And then what? So, like we talked about before, you know, the study out of the University of Minnesota that showed that beta amyloid plaque in the brain was the cause of Alzheimer's. And now we find out they faked the pictures. And that study had been quoted like 2,300 times by other studies. And it drove all the research. And now we find out it was faked. So if you have no foundation, I mean, the building's going to collapse. And that's about where we're at right now with medicine. The foundations are collapsing. You know, I can't remember if I told this last time, but I'll tell it again if I did. Doing this once a month, it's hard to keep track of what I've told people. I think I've mentioned before, there was a guy in college. He did a little better on the MedCat test than I did. And he tried to get into medical school, and they never let him. And I always wondered what happened there. I mean, obviously, it has to be more than just a test.
Sure.
To get into medical school. So I don't know what they saw in him, but they thought he would make a good doctor. And he was a little squirrely, an artistic kind of guy. But then I started thinking, I'm wondering, when they screen for doctors, do they look for people that follow rules? That's what I'm thinking. Because this guy definitely wasn't a rule follower. And I think for the hold up the whole shambles of what medicine is, you have to have all these doctors be rule followers. And then they got the FDA and the CDC and the NIH giving all these rules. And trust me, you're seeing a patient every 10, 15, 20 minutes. And you're coming out of one room and the guy's got congestive heart failure. And he's on oxygen. And the next room you go into is a 2-week follow-up after birth of a newborn. And you're going bang, bang. You're like a pinball machine, especially in family practice. We see just about everything. So at some point, you have to rely on other people, studies. I don't have time to do studies on my own. So you have to rely on the NIH and CDC and the FDA. And then you get to this point in my career, and I find out that maybe they're not all that truthful. I mean, where does the doctor hang his hat? So some of them have just doubled down, and they're just going to say vaccines are great. We're not going to question vaccines. It's the foundation of medicine. And then other people are starting to question them, and states are trying to make rules where they can have exceptions to like religious exceptions to vaccines. And there's some reasons to have religious exceptions to vaccines, because a lot of them have cells from other animals, for one thing, chickens and pigs, and that gets introduced into your body. And then there's from aborted fetuses, some cells like that in some of these vaccines. So there are reasons to object, but some states don't allow objections. Like New York voted no objections. FDA, or the Supreme Court, will not touch it. They will not rule. They're not going to get in this fight. They refuse to hear any cases that deal with that. So speaking of refusing to hear stuff, I saw something the other day about the parliamentarian. I didn't know Congress has a parliamentarian.
And that has the ability to override them in some cases.
Yeah. I didn't know that. It's a woman, I think, right now.
Mm-hmm.
And she decides what bills get put out there.
Decides if the bills match up with, I guess, with the math and all the other stuff that they say that it does.
And yesterday, Congress voted on something, and right before the vote, she changed it from needing 51 votes to needing 60 votes.
Yep.
And they couldn't get 60 votes. So she knew it was going to kill it. That's a very powerful, non-elected,
That's a very powerful job, isn't it?
Non-elected individual.
Yeah. I didn't know that till this go around, too. I didn't know they had the authority to veto stuff, I think is what she said. They vetoed part of it. She vetoed part of the bill.
Well, that's what medicine is right now. We've got people that we've trusted all these years, and now we find out maybe their trust. Well, it's like beef, you know. Beef can come from Brazil and it'll be American. I guess if the U.S. Department of Agriculture can say so, it can be sold as American beef, even though it came from another country. Crazy rules. So it's all of you out there. You need to get involved locally in your politics, your school boards, and all these meetings that happen. A lot of meetings happen at your town that you probably are unaware of, that make decisions that you have to abide by at the State House. And it's not, we've come to the point where you just can't say, I trust these people to take care of us and do the right thing. I think that ship has sailed. I do see they're trying to limit the terms. I think that will help out. People stay in there way too long, get way too rich.
Yeah.
There's no explanation for that money. So that's all I think I have today, unless you got somebody wants to call and give me something else to grouch about.
865-457-1380. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll take a quick break, and then we'll come back here. And if you guys have anything else to add, we will do just that. 865-457-1380 or 877-711-4005. If you have any questions for Dr. Ayers, now's the time to call, or we'll come back here and wrap it up in just a moment. AM 1380 WYSH, FM 101.1, AM 960 WQLA. Good morning.
Our grand opening at Rusty Walls Hyundai, and we're celebrating our new facility all month long. This month, you can get up to $7,000 off new Hyundais. This month, you can get up to $7,000 off a new 2024 Hyundai. Yes, that's right, up to $7,000 off a Rusty Walls Hyundai. And remember, all new vehicles come with America's best warranty of 10 years, 100,000 miles. And 3 years free maintenance. So come celebrate our grand opening at Rusty Wallace Hyundai, where it's always a fun day. Visit us online at rustywallacehyundai.com. See you for good days.
Get ready for summer and lake season at Hammer Stores. Every week, there are new shipments of ladies' famous label sportwear and men's branded clothing. Ladies and girls' boutique fashions are 25% off Hammer's regularly low marked price. Check out new arrivals for summer from Simply Southern and our largest selection ever of men's fishing apparel from Huck, Magellan, Real Life, and Habit. We have just received truckloads of short sleeve printed tees from several famous makers that can outfit the entire family for the coming warmer months. Enjoy hot deals on men's shirts, swim trunks, and shorts from famous makers like Worldwide Sportsman, Columbia, Johnny O, Simply Southern, and many, many more. Beat the heat with all-terrain gear, pants, and shorts from Wrangler at all-time low prices. Continue your spring cleaning and save now on a truckload sale of throw rugs and area rugs. Also, visit Hammer's Facebook and Instagram for daily deals. If you miss a day, you miss a bargain at Hammer's, Clinton, Sevierville, Wartburg, Halls, and Newcastle.
Hammers, you should see us now.
Here's Dr. Mark Smith, Physician's Associate from Way to Go Weight Loss Centers, an anti-aging medical spa, talking about the new shot they're now offering that will help you lose weight.
In general, I've been doing weight loss for about 17 years, and I've never seen anything like this. Studies actually also show a 26% reduction in heart attack, 26% reduction in stroke in patients that are on this medication. You get the all-around effect of preventative medicine and weight loss all at one time.
Hi, my name is Sean Hatfield. After years of struggling with my diet and my health, I had hit 300 pounds and was ready for a change. When I gave him a call, Dr. Mark Mark and his staff were amazing. And since starting Way to Go Weight Loss, I have lost over 100 pounds, and my quality of life has completely changed. I no longer have high blood pressure or diabetes, and I was actually able to complete the 16-mile Mount LeConte hike with my family last spring. And I just want to tell everyone that if you are struggling with your weight, give Way to Go Weight Loss a call.
Call 865-219-8650. 865-219-8650. Way to Go Weight Loss and Anti-Aging Medical Spa. All right, looks like that's about it there, Doc. Anything else you'd like to add or anything you want to throw in there?
I think, get some sunshine. Don't get overheated. The way your body cools itself is by you sweating. You got out of a swimming pool and the wind's blowing you, how cold you get. So that's the way your body cools itself off. When it's real humid, then the body can't evaporate the sweat from your skin into the air. There's too much water in the air. So that's where it gets to be dangerous. When you have high humidity and high temperatures, your body can't cool itself off. So be sure to cool yourself off. There's a couple things that can happen to you. One is heat exhaustion, and that's just where you had too much heat and you start to feel really weak. Then there's heat stroke. Now, heat stroke, what happens, the body quits sweating. The bodies are really dry. In heat exhaustion, you'll be drenched in sweat. In heat stroke, your skin will be dry and your temperature's going up really, really fast. Those people need to have ice packed in their groin, ice packed under their armpits, and get to the hospital quickly. They have to be cooled off. Heat exhaustion, you just need some fluids and get out of the heat for a bit. Just be careful. It's been hot here last week and pretty warm today. So that'll save you a lot of trouble.
There you go. All right. Until next month, you guys. Dr. David Ayers will be back with us on the first Tuesday of the month of August. So tune in, dial up. Happy 4th of July. Hope you have a great Independence Day.
Thank you for listening to AM 1380 WYSH and Ask Your Neighbor. Make sure you tune in at 10 a.m. each day, Monday through Friday, right here on AM 1380 WYSH and BBB TV 12. Or listen live online at WYSHradio.com. And remember, if you have a question, comment, or problem, call in tomorrow and ask your neighbor. Or email from our website. It's Ask Your Neighbor. Thanks for listening.